Nobody tells you what it actually feels like to get stronger. They show you the result. The composed man, the unshakable man, the man who walks into hard situations and comes out the other side without breaking. But nobody shows you the middle, the part where you are getting stronger and it feels like you are falling apart. The part where the growth is real, but completely invisible. And because nobody told you what it looks like from the inside. Most people mistake the process for failure. They are building something extraordinary, and they think they are losing. Stay with me for the next 8 minutes, because I am going to show you 7 signs, drawn from Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, and one of the most studied principles of power ever written, that prove you are becoming mentally stronger, even if today does not feel like it at all. Sign 1. You are getting comfortable being misunderstood. This is the first sign, and most people miss it completely because it does not feel like strength. It feels like loneliness. When you start growing, genuinely growing, the people around you do not always grow with you. Your standards shift. Your tolerance for certain conversations decreases. Your priorities start to look different from the outside, and people who knew the previous version of you start to have opinions about the new one. They call it arrogance. They call it distance. They call it thinking you are better than everyone. And the old version of you would have bent, would have explained yourself, would have softened the edges to keep everyone comfortable. The new version does not. Not because you stopped caring about people, because you started caring more about your direction than their comfort with it. Marcus Aurelius dealt with this his entire reign. Senators who misread his patience as weakness. Historians who misrepresented his philosophy. People in his own court who had decided who he was before he walked in. And he wrote this: "Never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect." He was not managing their opinion. He was protecting his direction. That is sign 1. When being misunderstood no longer makes you change who you are stronger than you were. Sign 2. Your reaction time to problems has slowed down. This sounds like a weakness. It is the opposite. The reactive man responds to everything immediately. Every provocation gets an immediate response. Every problem demands an immediate solution. Every piece of bad news produces an immediate emotion. And that speed, that constant, immediate firing, is exhausting. It is also how people get controlled. The 48 Laws of Power is specific about this. The man who can make you react instantly owns that moment, because your reaction was his strategy. He pulled a lever and you moved. Epictetus spent his entire philosophy on this single idea. Between the thing that happens and your response to it, there is a space. And in that space is where your character lives. When you start naturally pausing before you respond. When problems no longer send you into immediate spiral. When you find yourself sitting with difficulty before deciding what to do with it. That is not indifference. That is mastery developing. The space is getting wider. And a wider space means nobody can pull your lever without your permission. Sign 3. You are starting to protect your energy differently. There was a version of you that said yes to everything. Every request, every invitation. Every person who needed something from you regardless of what it cost you to give it. And you called that generosity. The Stoics would call it something else. They would call it the absence of a standard. Seneca wrote one of the most direct things I have ever read on this topic. He said, "It is not that I have too little time. It is that I waste what I have." Most people read that as a productivity lesson. It is actually a boundaries lesson. When you start saying no without a lengthy explanation, when you start choosing silence over obligatory conversation, when you start treating your attention as the finite and valuable resource it actually is, people around you will notice. Some will respect it. Some will call it coldness. Neither reaction changes the fact that you are finally operating from a place of genuine self-respect. That is sign 3. You are not available for everything anymore. And that selectivity is a sign of someone who understands what their energy is actually worth. Sign 4. Failure stopped meaning what it used to mean. There is a version of failure that destroys people. It becomes identity. I failed, therefore I am a failure. I fell short, therefore falling short is who I am. And they carry it, for years sometimes, as evidence of something fundamentally wrong with them. The mentally stronger version of you, the one you are becoming right now, even if you cannot see it, has a different relationship with failure. Not comfortable with it, not indifferent to it, but not defined by it. Marcus Aurelius failed. His military campaigns did not always go as planned. His personal relationships were complicated and sometimes painful. His philosophical practice, the one he wrote about in the Meditations, was a daily record of falling short of his own standard and choosing to try again the next morning. He wrote this: "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." That is not pessimism. That is a man who had stopped being surprised by difficulty. And a man who is no longer surprised by difficulty cannot be stopped by it. When failure stops being a verdict and starts being information, you are stronger than you were. Sign 5. You have stopped waiting for other people to validate your progress. This one is subtle, and it is one of the most significant signs of genuine mental strength. There was a version of you that needed the acknowledgement, the recognition. Someone to look at what you were doing and confirm that it was worth doing. And when that confirmation did not come, the motivation leaked out. The 48 Laws calls this making your self-worth dependent on court approval. And it is one of the most common ways intelligent people get controlled. Because the moment someone else holds the key to your sense of progress, they have power over whether you continue. Seneca watched this destroy men who had everything. He wrote about wealthy Romans who had achieved more than most people ever would, and were completely paralyzed by the question of whether the right people had noticed. He called it the most pitiful kind of poverty. To have everything and still be dependent on others to tell you it counts. The mentally stronger version of you has started to close that gap. You are building because the building is the point, not because someone is watching, not because the numbers are there yet, not because the people around you have acknowledged the shift. You know the shift is happening, and that knowing, independent of external confirmation, is one of the clearest signs that something real is being built. Subscribe to The Quiet Stoic. New video every single day. Sign 6. Hard conversations have stopped feeling like threats. There was a time when a difficult conversation on the horizon would disrupt your entire day. The anticipation of conflict would produce more anxiety than the conflict itself. And so you avoided. You went around, you softened, you said what needed to be said in a way that took out everything that actually needed to be heard. And the thing stayed unresolved, and you carried the unresolved thing. And the weight of unresolved things is one of the heaviest loads a person can carry. Epictetus was precise about this. He said, "First learn the meaning of what you say and then speak." Most people flip this. They speak first and figure out what they meant later. The mentally stronger version of you has started to understand that a hard conversation done honestly is always lighter than the weight of the thing you did not say. Not comfortable, lighter, because once it is said, you are no longer carrying it alone in a room that only exists inside your head. When you start choosing honest discomfort over comfortable avoidance, that is a sign. That is strength that most people never develop. Sign 7. You are becoming harder to impress and easier to satisfy. This is the one that surprises people most. Getting harder to impress sounds like cynicism. It is actually discernment. As your standards for what is genuinely valuable increase, the things that used to distract you start to lose their pull. The noise loses its volume. The performances lose their effect. The things that were designed to capture your attention stop capturing it as easily. And simultaneously, the simple things start to carry more weight. A morning of genuine focus. A conversation with someone who is honest with you. The quiet satisfaction of doing the thing you said you were going to do. These things become enough. Not because you have lowered your ambition, because you have raised your awareness of what actually matters. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this near the end of his reign. He had commanded armies. He had shaped the philosophy of an empire. He had held more power than almost any human being in history. And he wrote about the pleasure of simple bread, about the satisfaction of honest work, about the richness of genuine friendship. Not because he had given up on greatness, because he had finally understood what greatness actually looked like from the inside. That is sign 7. When the simple things start to feel like enough, not as resignation, but as recognition. You are not losing your edge. You are finding out what your edge was always actually for. Here is what I want you to carry out of this video. Mental strength is not loud. It does not announce itself. It does not arrive in a single moment of dramatic clarity. It builds in the quiet, in the misunderstood season, in the slower reactions nobody compliments you on, in the no you said when yes would have been easier, in the failure you did not let define you, in the progress you kept making without anyone confirming it was real. The Stoics did not measure strength by how it looked from the outside. They measured it by what it cost the man on the inside, and whether he paid it anyway. You are paying it, even on the days it does not feel like anything is happening, especially on those days. That is what real strength looks like from the inside. And now you know what to look for. Subscribe to The Quiet Stoic for daily Stoic wisdom that actually changes how you live.